Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
The day we have waited so long to arrive is here. It's 5:06. It's O'Connor and Company on Inauguration Day 2025. Soak it in. Big question for you. And if you'd like to reach out to us on social media or however you would like to communicate, what's better today? That at noon Trump will be inaugurated as the President of the United States, or that at noon Joe Biden will no longer be the President of the United States? It's win-win. There is no wrong answer today. At 6:05, we're going to check in with Spencer Brown, the spokesperson for Young America's Foundation, because we're in his house. Well, not his specific house, but we are at Young America's Foundation's downtown Capitol Hill headquarters as we prepare for the inauguration of Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States, just about, a block and a half away from where we're sitting. At 6:35, we'll talk with Jane Hampton-Cook, presidential historian. 7:05, you bet we'll talk to Joe DeGeneva. 7:35, Trevor Mattich on the Commanders, one game away from the Super Bowl. 8:05, Scott Walker, former Wisconsin governor and president of Young America's Foundation. And then at 8:35, Sean Spicer, he's got to have PTSD. Julie Gunlock, 8 years ago, he was about to become the press spokesperson and tell us how big the crowd was.
Yes, yeah. My goodness.
what a difference 8 years made.
The vibe shift has happened, Larry. I think we both feel that here in Washington.
It was something else. You and I both. Well, we went to the same party last night, but we went to a lot of events over the weekend. You and I, we were running into each other at various times. You always, of course, had an entourage of young men following you around and catering to your every need, which is fine. That's good. It's what you deserve. And but
that's just my kids.
Well, and what's funny is we had to get from the YAF headquarters, which is right by Heritage, right by, off the Capitol, and we had to get down to an event toward the Ellipse last night, a mile and a half, really, a mile and a quarter, just barely over a mile.
Yeah.
Super easy to get to.
Yeah.
Except right now, where every road is shut down.
Yeah.
And the fences and the barriers and the sidewalk shut down in some places and very hard to get around. And Trump was at the Capital One Arena, so that made it even harder to go through there because
that's right.
And so we ended up honestly, the best thing to do, and it was and it was 20 degrees and 5 below when the wind started blowing. It was very cold. So we decided, let's just take the metro. We're by Union Station. It's 2 stops. I mean, that's going to be the easiest way. And let's face it, if you do have to get around downtown because you're coming down for the inauguration today, take metro. Because this is the safest, cleanest time to ever be on the metro.
And first of all, I was on one of those new cars last night.
Yeah.
They look nice.
Oh, yeah.
They really do.
Yeah,
I was convinced someone was going to set me on fire, but
no, but they're super safe. Yeah,
super
and
safe.
Full of MAGA people.
Yeah,
that's what I was getting
the other
at.
thing. And you could and people are sort of shamelessly wearing, including my husband last night, who was wearing his MAGA hat.
MAGA hats everywhere
to a cocktail
from all
reception.
around the country.
I was like, honey, please, because I thought people were going to walk around and ask if that was my dad.
DC.
Seriously.
I was wondering that too. DC, which is nice because Meredith and I get that all the time. DC seemed like a giant CPAC last night.
Oh my gosh, that's such a great way to put it.
MAGA everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere you walk, everywhere on the sidewalks, everyone who lives in DC has left.
But let me get back to
I was trying to register them all to vote in Washington. It's okay. It's not really a state. You're fine.
You're allowed to register and at home. But just very quickly, back to the metro thing. I just wanted to say this. Be prepared to hoof it. Okay. Late last night, as we were going out to this event where you guys were at the same event, there were some notifications that more streets had closed.
Yeah, and they'll just decide like that.
They decide like that, and so I went from these really nice heels to snow boots because I, first of all, just did not want to walk that distance in heels, and also it's cold. So be prepared to walk because you're just going to have to do that. They're not letting cabs through. They're not letting any Ubers through. There's a lot of pedicabs around DC. These little bike.
They're rickshaws.
Rickshaws.
Yes. When you call them a pedicab, it makes it sound like a cab driver who's got a lot of issues. It gives you a lot of attitude. Oh, you're going to a party. Well, I don't want to be petty about it. So you mean people who ride bicycles and you sit in the back?
Is pedicab not a word?
I think it is.
Okay, you're hilarious.
No,
anyway,
so
anyway, I just wanted to note that for the ladies listening.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, you're right. You're going to have to walk. Well, and that brings us to what's going on here with moving everything indoors. Because, first of all, the rally yesterday it looked like a blast. We did not go to it, but I know people who were there. It was a great energy. But there were thousands and thousands of people who were turned away. Your son, with his little posse of high school friends, were all ready to go there and see the Village People.
Yes.
Because what high school boy doesn't want to see
Kid
the Village?
Rock.
Oh, Kid Rock. That's pretty cool, too.
Okay.
They wanted to see Stephen Miller, let's face it. Not the Steve Miller Band. I mean, Stephen Miller, just the wonk,
Absolutely.
right? And but they were turned away. They never got in.
It was so strange.
Yet there were empty seats up in the top levels.
Yeah, I dropped him off early. What's interesting is they said you should be in line by the original invitation said be in line by 1 o'clock. Doors open at 3.
Yeah.
But then he got this sort of panicked call from one of his friends saying, "I'm already in line."
Mm-hmm.
It was like 10:30 in the morning,
and it was
so we brought thousands
blocks
of people.
long.
So we brought Jack. I drove Jack, and boy, that was not fun driving in.
Capital One seats like 19,000-20,000. I
Yes.
guess with this layout because they've got a stage on the floor and stuff for a concert. Maybe
less.
Maybe
15.
no, actually, maybe even a little
really?
more because it was in the round. They didn't block off.
Of course.
Could have been 20,000.
Yeah.
It's like it looks like for a political convention.
Yeah, and Jack wasn't expecting. My son wasn't expecting these incredible seats or anything, but he never got in, and I will tell you,
he waited
him
5 hours,
5.5 hours, and we watched him on the little, we have find your kid. We watched him, and he was all over the place, and my son actually said that the line was really badly organized. I'm not criticizing anyone. I'm just saying that, and he was not upset because he met some people and it was really fun. And young kids.
I'll be honest. I'm not asking about your son's feelings. I'm really wanting a good report of what it was like on the ground there.
Oh, everybody was in great spirits. Everybody was having a good time.
But they didn't get in.
They didn't get in.
Thousands of people were turned away from the rally.
Yeah, so it was interesting.
And yet there were empty seats. And if they pull that crap today, and then people are like, "Oh, look, it couldn't even fill Capital One Arena."
I do think for that rally there were some organizational issues of getting people through the doors. This is what I will say. There were apparently, and this is just something I heard through the grapevine, that there were some people trying to get in with fake tickets. Mm-hmm. Now, again, I heard this through the grapevine, but there may have been some security issues, meaning they were being extra
Secret
careful.
Service things. I think that's what's at the bottom of all. I mean, I recognize it's going to be cold, and we don't. And let's face it, there are a lot of people over the age of 80 in Congress, and it's going to be hard for them to sit out in the cold for all this long. But the last time, Susan Crabtree, who has very good sources in Secret Service, basically reported over the weekend that although this was not driven by Secret Service, the moment it was floated that maybe they should go inside, Secret Service was all on board. I think that there have been concerns about security. Listen, you and I were walking through the streets last night as a helicopter was blanketing like back and forth. It's very weird to have a helicopter flying over the mall these days anyway. And it was just, I think that the second it was floated that they would go inside, everyone was like, yep, we're doing it. Because let's face it, the last president to be sworn in the rotunda was Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was cold that day. He also happened to be the last president who had survived an assassination attempt before that inauguration. Yep. And I'm thinking that whatever delays you had at the Capital One Arena was also a Secret Service consideration, which raises some concerns about what this event is going to look like today. And you got to feel for the people who have spent tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, some of the big donors to come here, and they are not going to see what they expected to see. What will you see today? How will you see it? We'll get into those details in a moment. First, though, it's 5:15.
WMAL is live from Capitol Hill Monday for the inauguration of Donald J. Trump, sponsored by Young America's Foundation.
That's right. We are, in fact, in the headquarters, the downtown Capitol Hill headquarters of Young America's Foundation. Well, they'll be having a party and reception all day long. Heritage Foundation, right around the corner, had a big party going on last night as well. And a big time. I think they were celebrating the people that were leaving Heritage and going to work in the administration, which is a good chunk of people. Saw that lots of parties. It is fun to be down here when there's so many parties
Project
going
2025, right? We got to get that started.
It's about time we launched that Project 2020. Just kidding. It is fun, and there are so many people in from out of town. When we were on the Metro, we saw. And this is the other point I wanted to make. If you're wondering, is it okay to ride the Metro? half of the people on our car going to the stop we were going to were like members of Congress. It's like the metro scene is very different than your typical commuting day.
Yeah.
I promise
well,
you.
there's
You'll
a lot
say,
of
hey,
red
isn't that
hats.
the chairman of that committee?
Right.
Chairman of Ways and Means. We
Yes.
passed him
Did
in
you
Union
really?
Station.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes.
Well, when we were on the metro, lots of tuxes.
Yes.
Lots of people in tuxes.
We should institute a black tie only dress code on the metro. It would change the style in this town. It would be fantastic. Lots of ball gowns too on the metro, which is nice.
Yes.
Always good to see. A lot of cleavage.
Where did you notice that, Larry?
I'm just saying. Just as a fashion.
A warning.
Yes, look out. Objects in mirror are closer than they appear.
It's cold, ladies. Get a scarf.
Look at CNN. Bless their hearts. Their pre-inauguration coverage on CNN is all January 6th right now.
Of course.
Well,
of course.
Because everyone's pointing out the irony or poetic justice that President Trump later today will be sworn in as President of the United States in the very rotunda that was the site of the insurrection of 8 years ago this month. And let's talk about it. If you're going to actually physically see Donald Trump sworn in as president, it means you're a member of the House of Representatives, the Senate, or a dignitary and guest of those people. They're the only ones who will witness it live in person because it's going to be in the rotunda, which is not a very big room.
Right.
It'll be beautiful. It'll be majestic. I know a couple of people who are lucky enough to go, and we've been telling them take as many pictures as possible because this is a once every 4 or 5 decades situation.
Yes.
Got to go back to 1984 for the last time that this happened. You'll be hearing that a lot. Then this overflow, I guess, of people who couldn't get to the seats that they paid $50,000 to sit in will be sitting at Capital One Arena. I don't know exactly how they manage that.
I don't either.
I mean, imagine if you had bought one of these giant inaugural packages. And, of course, there's all the disclaimers that say, weather permitting and all that stuff, and they have contingencies. But, boy, is it a different situation for them
It is.
than they were expecting.
Look, I feel bad for everyone. I certainly feel bad for people who spent $50,000 to come here, but I feel like those people can, make themselves feel better by, flying to Italy next week. But
I get that, but I know for a fact that there are upper middle class people who scrimped and saved and decided we love Trump.
Yes,
it's worth it. Let's do it.
Well, on the metro last night, we were waiting for our train to come, and I saw some people with MAGA hats. So we approached them, and I asked where they were. I said, "Are you from here? Or did you come in from?" They were from Arkansas.
Yeah.
And they were kind of, you could tell they were sad. They tried to make the most of it. They were walking around town and doing their best, but there really isn't a lot for them to do. I mean, they had from their congressman or congresswoman, they had tickets to go, outside and watch the parade and then watch from the lawn, of the Capitol building. And now they don't have a lot to do, and they're going to try the arena. They tried to get into the Trump rally, couldn't get in. Yeah. So I feel bad for folks.
They better fix it. Coming in, apparently, if you're trying to get inside the fenced perimeter, there's only one access point.
Oh, really?
For tens of thousands, if not over 100,000 people, one access point. You get to Capital One Arena, you'll be able to see it on the screen. We are told that President Trump will come and make an appearance at the Capital One Arena after he is sworn in. They say they're going to have the parade festivities in the Capital One Arena. I don't know what that looks like. I guess the bands who were supposed to play will just come out on stage and play. Or something, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems a little like a tango line, but I will, yeah.
And then his motorcade will make its way down Pennsylvania, which, by the way, we saw for free last night.
Yeah.
As we were walking to our event, the Trump motorcade had been leaving the rally and going back to Blair House, where traditionally the president-elect stays across the street. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't want to be a downer about this at all, but I will tell you, Larry, I was here on 9/11, and my husband, and so is my husband, and my husband and I both had sort of, we felt like, gosh, we haven't seen this sort of lockdown since just after 9/11, when you saw the military vehicles and flashing lights everywhere all over the city and streets cordoned off. It's a little...
It seems excessive.
I don't think it seems excessive, but it does dampen the mood a little because, it reminds you that, boy, Trump is facing probably some serious threats. So,
well, I mean, the upside, and as we're sort of lamenting and feeling, listen, obviously we want the president to be safe. We want the president-elect to be safe. We want the entire proceedings
100%.
to be safe.
Yep.
And let's face it, 8 years ago, the town was sort of shut down for another reason, not out of security concerns, but because Antifa rioted.
That's right.
And there were cars set on fire,
yes.
and there were people who were,
Businesses
chased
yes.
down the street. And
very different. That's right. Yep.
If I have to pick one or the other, I'd rather take it the way it is right now in the lockdown. If you are coming, and you should come, this is an amazing thing. And the mood in downtown Washington, D.C. is so festive and so celebratory.
Yes.
And it feels like our town.
It does.
Like we went. Now, it's not going to last, but it's worth it. So you should come down today and be a part of all the things. And you'll see Julie and I sort of like standing on the street corner drinking, trying to stay warm. It is. There's more all morning long here, live from downtown, just off Capitol Hill. It's O'Connor and Company on Inauguration Day.
Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
We're live from Young America's Foundation, just a stone's throw from the Capitol Rotunda, where at noon today, Donald J. Trump will be sworn in as your 47th president, and, well, then it's game on. Now, coming up at 6:05, Spencer Brown, spokesperson for Young America's Foundation, will join us. You see him on Fox News. He was on Fox News at like 11 o'clock last night. I think he's just rolling in from the pub. 6:35, Jane Hampton Cook, presidential historian. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. 7:35, Trevor Maddich on the Commanders' march toward the Super Bowl. And at 8:05, president of Young America's Foundation, Scott Walker, former governor of Wisconsin. 8:35, our buddy Sean Spicer will be joining us. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
It's very exciting. Actually, our friend Patrice Onwuka is going to be joining us a little later as well. She'll be flying in here and swapping in and doing stuff and enjoying this very historic day in American history. And there's a lot going on here. You know, we saw Joe Biden went down to South Carolina to, thank James Clyburn for handing him the nomination 4 years ago. It was, again, a lamentable exit for Joe Biden, and we'll get to that. I mean, I'm not kidding. What is better here, the fact that Trump's going to be president or the fact that Biden will no longer be president?
It's a tough call.
It's been a horrible presidency, one of the worst, and it's fantastic that he's gone now.
Yeah, it is.
What are you asking me to do?
Turn down.
Oh, thank you. I couldn't tell because that was very unambiguous. How about doing this?
Okay.
Thumbs down would be turn down. In your ears or your microphone?
It hurts.
Okay. You asked me to turn it up a little earlier. This is what happens when you do a live remote on location.
That's what happens.
Is
Larry
that
has
better?
to make fun of you
Well,
on air.
be
try your thumb.
more
okay, I'm sorry.
very
Okay,
ambiguous hand gestures there. I'm used to your very definitive hand gestures that you give me that I cannot repeat on the air. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Right.
I am number one. Anyway, there's a lot going on here with regard to the new presidency beginning, and we keep talking not only about this transition from Joe Biden to Donald Trump, which is phenomenal, but also the difference between Donald Trump Series 2 versus 8 years ago. When I put out a picture on my social media, I remember walking downtown the day before the inauguration 8 years ago, and on top of a building under construction, hanging off of a giant crane, was a banner that said "Resist."
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
And just the atmosphere was so very different than it is this time right now for this new presidency.
8 years ago, all of my children were in the Alexandria public schools, and I'll never forget that. Sort of, everybody was talking about the reaction to Trump, and the principal of my children's elementary school gathered all of the faculty into his office and into this sort of outer office. He then began to cry. And then he told everybody that it is our job to save the children from Donald Trump.
There you go.
And then everyone cried. And then a few teachers actually talked about it, and it got back to me. But this is what we were facing, this hysteria.
Well, and I have no doubt that there's that going on. And we do have some stories about some very, very funny media reports about how you can cope with the inauguration and tips for you to get through it. But there is definitely a palpable shift in terms of pop culture right now, I think. And here's a perfect example. Oscar de la Renta, the fashion house, which you should probably fill in here and explain who, obviously it's a brand name, and you talk about maintaining a high quality fashion brand for decades. Oscar de la Renta is still, one of the top.
Absolutely.
And they spent all weekend highlighting the clothes that
And when you say
Ivanka Trump.
we're talking about the company itself went
Yeah.
on social media and started to promote the idea that that Oscar de la Renta has designed many of the gowns
Yeah.
that the women of the sort of Trump world.
Here's the
Usha Vance.
second lady, Usha Vance, wearing this Oscar de la Renta beautiful black velvet. I mean, it's a gorgeous dress.
It's an asymmetrical velvet gown with a floral accent, a sweetheart neckline. She is a knockout.
Absolutely.
She looks absolutely fabulous.
Somebody put together a one of those 3 photo montages of Melania Trump yesterday, Usha Vance yesterday, and Ivanka Trump yesterday, who was in town for the ceremonies at Arlington. And my God, this is a glamorous White House.
A glamorous back. This is why a lot of people who've been in this town for a lot of years feel like this is very Reagan-esque.
Yeah.
It feels a little like old Hollywood. There are some gorgeous women in gorgeous gowns, handsome, rugged men. So yeah, it's like, so you.
I was there
on
too,
Twitter,
Julie.
Like, we are so back.
Yeah, we are
right?
so back. We are so freaking back right now.
But the thing is when you have prominent designers, fashion designers, very high-end designers like Oscar de la Renta, not just saying, yes, I design, but actually promoting his designs on social media. 8 years ago, there was this sort of hushed, if you did anything for the Trumps, it was sort of hushed. You hope nobody
you had
noticed.
some fashion designers saying, I refuse to allow my designs.
Yes, absolutely. But those who did, they didn't want any news about it.
Yeah. Well,
right?
And this is why. Ivanka Trump's custom Oscar de la Renta gown sparks liberal meltdown and calls for boycott of the designer. And yes. But it's just random people on social media. Buy Oscar de la Renta. I know you won't be canceled, but you are to me for having no effing morals.
I mean, come on.
Exactly. Come on. Get over yourself. This is all very 8 years ago, and we're not there with you. In fact, recent polls showed, and this is CNN reporting, 60% of Americans are optimistic about the next 4 years under President Donald Trump.
That is the worst thing to a lib, is optimism.
That's right.
Happiness, joy, feeling good about your country, loving your country, patriotism. These are anathema to the Democrats.
Can't
they
have
hate
that.
them. Right, can't have that.
It's 5:43.
WMAL is live from Capitol Hill Monday for the inauguration of Donald J. Trump, sponsored by Young America's Foundation.
So TikTok got a bit of a reprieve here, and I'm not sure why. TikTok was supposed to be banned. The Supreme Court came in and said there's nothing unconstitutional or anti-free speech about this. And I guess President Trump put out a message yesterday saying, I'm asking companies not to let TikTok stay dark. I'll issue an executive order on Monday to extend the period of time before the law's prohibitions take effect. He made a big deal about this at the rally yesterday and said, I'm going to save TikTok. And if there's a domestic owner and they can make sure they go through all the code and make sure that they wipe out all of the stuff that shows that TikTok's spying on us, okay, that's fine. But why is there any gray area here? I mean, the law has been passed. The Supreme Court said it doesn't violate the First Amendment. We know that they're a national security risk. We know that they've been lying to us about that because before, remember, Julie, they said, well, the Chinese government has nothing to do with this. And now all the headlines are the Chinese government is trying to figure out what they're going to do about the TikTok ban.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought the Chinese government had nothing to do with ByteDance.
Yeah.
They're obviously using this app to screw with our kids and to spy on us.
Yeah.
And
the latest
they
thing,
should wipe it off of the app
They
stores.
absolutely should. And the latest thing now is you see all these viral videos of these young women going, you mean to tell me that in China they only work 30 hours a week, they own their own home, they're debt-free, they get free health insurance? I don't know if you've seen this.
Yes, it's
but
like
that's
Chinese propaganda.
It's totally Chinese propaganda.
Hey, wait a second.
And again, while they're doing that, they're also collecting all this information on Americans. Get rid of it. I think I join a lot of other people who are monitoring this issue and going, why did he do this? Why did he choose to extend this? What's the reasoning there? I don't know, but I do think Trump, in his own opinion, thinks that he found some success on TikTok, reaching a young audience, reaching voters. He sees some utility there and he wants to try to find a solution. It is disappointing. I don't really understand.
Maybe. I mean, I know that I don't know. I know that some people are saying, well, he likes TikTok because it was good for the campaign, so he wants to keep TikTok. I'm guessing that there's more to that.
Yeah, I think there's more to it. But
I think in general he would prefer not to ban things, and I appreciate that. But there is no doubt that TikTok is an insidious application that has been utilized. We know that, and I don't. And by the way, Spicer made this point the other day, and it was actually a good one. So I'll give him some credit. We all went freaking nuts with our hair on fire because a balloon floated over the country, and we thought China's spying on us with this balloon.
This is a Chinese balloon.
I assure you, it's a lot more powerful than the balloon, and it's sitting on your kid's smartphone right now.
Yeah, it is. It's an absolutely insidious app, and we need to get rid of it. But again, I mean, was it Rand Paul this weekend saying, I just downloaded TikTok to support it. I think there is some frustration among some civil libertarians that maybe the government doesn't have this role. Of course, this is the most basic role of the government to look at what is a threat to our country, and TikTok is that. So I really do hope that this goes through. I hope it's banned.
Here's what I think is happening, and I think that there are a couple of different corporations, because of the Supreme Court case, there was kind of a suspension of potential quarters to purchase TikTok, right? And then, so the decision didn't come down until the 11th hour of end of last week. So now there are quarters who were in place saying, okay, well, let's work it out. And these deals aren't like that. It's going to take a little while for due diligence, work out the stock swaps or whatever they're going to do. And there are a couple of companies and entities that are interested in acquiring it, because the law is not banning TikTok. The law is banning foreign ownership from a hostile country like China of owning something like this. That's what the law states, and that's why it's not against the First Amendment. We are allowed to decide that if we have a foreign hostile country, that we don't have to do business with them, and we shouldn't be forced to do business with them. Obviously, there's nothing unconstitutional about that. Supreme Court affirmed that. And I think what Donald Trump is doing here is that he knows a lot of these potential companies have been down and spoken to the president-elect, and he says, all right, fine, 90 days, work it out so it stays within the confines of the law. And I think that's what's going to happen. But in the meantime, this law was passed last year.
Yeah.
What are we waiting on?
Yeah.
And I don't, but if the company gets banned and suddenly for a month and a half while the deal is going through, you've got people who are no longer using the app, it loses its value. And I think that's what the problem is.
Well, and I think I'm no fan of the influencer culture, but I think there are people that make significant amount of money on these apps being influencers and getting sort of targeted advertising deals. And I think there is some sympathy for those people. We want people to have flexibility. We believe in the gig economy, but this is not the way, really. TikTok is just not the way. We can find other ways. And again, changing the ownership, that's all that needs to happen. And then TikTok can exist.
Change of ownership, and then a thorough scrubbing of
all
of the bits and bytes and code, and making sure that everything is
That's why Elon Musk should buy it.
Would you like how Babylon Bee summarized this entire controversy very well? With TikTok ban, Americans now only being spied on by Pentagon, Google, Facebook, Apple, Samsung, doorbell, and toaster. I guess that's actually a fair point. It's 5:53.